They called me Derrick Jones, the man who made cities kneel. I controlled everything. Every shipment that moved through the docks, every deal made in shadows, every life that ended when I snapped my fingers. Fear was my currency, and I spent it well. My empire stretched across 3 states, and not a single soul dared to challenge me. I wore power like a second skin. But power, I would learn, has limits. It started small. A shipment was delayed. A contact who suddenly stopped answering calls. My lieutenant, Marcus, a man who had been with me for 12 years, walked into my office one Tuesday morning and quit. Just like that. No explanation. No fear in his eyes. He simply said, "I can't work for you anymore, boss. Something's changed." I threatened him. Promised consequences. But Marcus just smiled sadly and walked out. That night, I stood in my penthouse overlooking the city lights, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Uncertainty. Someone was playing a game I didn't understand. Someone was moving pieces on my board. In a coastal village 200 miles away, a girl named Adama lit a candle and whispered my name. And fate began to shift. The second sign came when my orders started failing in impossible ways. I sent men to collect from a debtor. They arrived to find his house burned down the night before the man vanished. I arranged a meeting with a rival gang leader to negotiate territory. He died in a car crash 3 hours before we were supposed to meet. Coincidences, my advisors said. Bad luck. But I didn't believe in luck. My men were getting nervous. I could see it in their eyes during our meetings. They whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. One of them, a young enforcer named Tommy, mentioned a name I'd never heard before. Adama. A girl from the coastal villages who supposedly controlled things that couldn't be controlled. I laughed. Voodoo nonsense, I told them. Superstition for weak minds. But when my biggest shipment of the year, 50 million in merchandise, disappeared without a trace from a locked warehouse guarded by 20 men, I stopped laughing. The guards swore they saw nothing. The cameras showed empty hallways. The cargo simply vanished. That night, I found a small cloth doll on my desk. It looked like me. A red string was tied around its throat. I sent my best investigators to find out who this Adama was. What they told me sounded like fantasy. She was 19, lived in a village where her grandmother had been a powerful priestess. The locals spoke of her in whispers, said she could see threads of fate that connected all things. They said she never threatened anyone directly. She just decided how things would end, and reality bent to match her vision. Nonsense. I decided to handle this myself. I visited the village with 10 armed men. The place was small, houses built from wood and stone, the ocean crashing nearby. Old women watched us from doorways. Children scattered. But no one seemed afraid. An elder approached me, a man with white hair and knowing eyes. "You're looking for Adama," he said. It wasn't a question. "Where is she?" I demanded. He smiled. "She already knows you're here. She knew you'd come 3 days ago." I felt cold despite the warm sun. "What does she want?" "Nothing from you," the elder replied. "But you took something from her cousin last month. A young man who worked at your docks. You had him killed for stealing." My jaw tightened. He stole from me. "And now," the elder said quietly, "fate steals from you." I returned to the city shaken, but refusing to show it. I called a meeting with my inner circle, the 5 men I trusted most. I needed to know their loyalty was solid. But as we sat around the table in my private warehouse, I noticed the looks they exchanged, the hesitation when I spoke. "Someone wants to say something," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "Speak now." Vincent, my oldest lieutenant, cleared his throat. "Boss, maybe we should just apologize. Give the family money. Whatever it takes to end this." I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. Apologize? To some village girl playing with dolls and candles. "People are leaving Derrick," Vincent said quietly. "Good people. They're scared of something they can't fight." "Then they're weak," I spat. That's when my personal bodyguard, Raphael, a man who'd saved my life twice, stood up. "I'm out too, boss. I have a family. I can't risk this." I stared at him, betrayal burning in my chest. You walk out that door, you're a dead man. Raphael met my eyes. Maybe. But at least I'll die on my own terms, not hers. He left. And I let him. 3 days later, I finally met her face to face. I was sitting in a restaurant downtown when she walked in. I knew it was her immediately. She moved with quiet confidence, wearing a simple white dress, her dark skin glowing in the dim light. She sat down across from me, without being invited. "Derrick Jones," she said softly. "The man who controls everything." I leaned back, studying her. "You've been causing me problems." "I've been correcting an imbalance," she replied. "You killed an innocent boy. He stole from me. He took bread to feed his sister," Adama said, her eyes never leaving mine. "You took his life over $50. I felt something shift in the air between us. Power recognizing power. But hers was different. Older. Deeper. "What do you want?" I asked. She stood up. "I want you to understand that some things cannot be bought, threatened, or controlled. You'll learn that lesson whether you accept it or not." "Is that a threat?" Adama smiled, and it chilled me to my bones. "I don't make threats, Mr. Jones. I simply decide how stories end." She walked out, and when I tried to follow, she was gone. Vanished into the crowded street like smoke. After that meeting, everything fell apart faster. My supply lines collapsed. 3 of my biggest clients switched to competitors overnight. A federal investigation that had been dormant for years suddenly became active again. My bank accounts were frozen due to mysterious audits. Every move I made to fix things backfired. I tried to intimidate a supplier who'd betrayed me. He died of a heart attack before my men even reached him. I attempted to bribe a federal agent. She was transferred to another state the next day. I planned to relocate my operations to a new city. The warehouse I'd purchased burned down the night before we were supposed to move in. My remaining men were terrified. They jumped in the shadows. Some wore protection charms. Others simply disappeared in the night. Then I received a package. Inside was a mirror with a message carved into the frame. "You control men. I control destiny." I smashed the mirror against the wall, but the words echoed in my head for days. I started drinking. Something I'd never done before. The control I'd built my entire life on was crumbling, and I couldn't stop it. I sat alone in my penthouse, thinking about the choices I'd made, the people I'd hurt, the lives I'd ended without a second thought. The boy Adama mentioned, the one I had killed, I barely remembered him. Just another face in a long line of people who'd crossed me. But now his face haunted my dreams. I saw him every night, young and scared, begging for mercy I never gave. My phone rang. It was Vincent. "Boss, you need to know something. Our contact in Miami, the one who controlled the southern routes, he's dead." "How?" I asked, my voice hollow. "They're talking about natural causes. But boss, he was 35 and healthy. This was 2 hours after he agreed to testify against you to reduce his own sentence." I hung up. Adama's influence was everywhere now, protecting her revenge while dismantling everything I'd built. She wasn't just powerful. She was inevitable. Desperation makes men dangerous. I decided on one final play. If I couldn't fight Adama directly, I'd destroy her village, force her hand, make her come to me on my terms. I gathered what remained of my loyal men, maybe 20 in total, and we drove through the night toward the coast. We had guns, gasoline, and a plan to burn everything until she surrendered. But we never made it to the village. Our cars broke down simultaneously on an empty road. Our phones died. When we tried to continue on foot, a storm rolled in from nowhere. Rain so heavy we couldn't see 3 feet ahead. We took shelter in an abandoned building. That's where we found them. The missing men from my organization. All of them sitting in a circle, eyes glazed over, murmuring words in a language I didn't recognize. Tommy, my young enforcer, looked up at me with empty eyes. "She's waiting for you, boss. In the center. She's always been waiting." I ran until my lungs burned. When I finally stopped, I was at the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean. And there she stood, Adama, did you really think violence was the answer? She asked gently. I fell to my knees. Everything I'd built, everything I controlled, all of it was gone. My empire had collapsed not through war or betrayal, but through the simple, unstoppable flow of fate redirected by this girl's will. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why not just kill me? Adama knelt beside me. Because death would be mercy. You need to understand what it feels like to be powerless. To watch everything you love slip away and know you can't stop it. That boy you killed, he felt that way. His sister felt that way. Now you do too. Tears I hadn't cried in 30 years fell down my face. What happens now? Now you disappear, she said. Your name becomes a warning. Your empire becomes dust. And I return to my village, where people will whisper about the Mafia boss who thought he controlled everything, until he met something he couldn't control. She stood up and walked away. I tried to follow, but my legs wouldn't move. I sat there on that cliff until dawn, and when the sun rose, I understood. My life as Derrick Jones was over. They say I fled the country. Some say I died that night on the cliff. Others claim I went mad and now wander the streets of distant cities, broken and forgotten. The truth doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the story. My empire crumbled completely within a month. My properties were seized. My money disappeared into legal fees and government accounts. The men who'd once feared me now told stories about my downfall in bars, laughing nervously because they knew how close they'd come to the same fate. But Adama, she remained. In her village by the sea, where the old ways still held power, where fate was not a concept, but a force that could be shaped by those who knew how. They say she never speaks of me, never brags about what she did. She simply tends to her garden, helps her neighbors, and lives quietly. But every gang leader, every crime boss, every person who thinks power makes them untouchable, eventually hears the story. The Mafia boss who controlled everything except his fate. And they learned the oldest lesson in the world. Power can be built with blood, but fate decides who keeps it. And somewhere in the darkness, the threads of destiny continue to weave, guided by hands that know patience is the greatest weapon of all. If you're watching this video, please subscribe to the channel for more folktale stories.